Welcome, guys, to Motivate, Grind, Succeed, the podcast, a show designed to help you to systemize and simplify success using high-performance habits. My name is Rasean, your host and your favorite internet neurotransformation coach. And in today's episode, we are going to be tackling a topic that affects all of us: negativity. Did you know, fun fact, that our brains are wired to focus more on the negative information than the positive? By the end of today's episode, you will understand why this happens, how it impacts your life, and the actionable steps to overcome it. So let's start with understanding why this happens, the psychology behind it. So in order to understand that, we need to first dive into a phenomenon known as the negativity bias. I'm not going to get super in depth, but in a nutshell, our brains are hardwired, in fact, to prioritize negative information over positive as a survival mechanism. So thousands of years ago, this helped our ancestors to stay vigilant to dangers. But fast forward to today, where there aren't any dinosaurs trying to eat us, this same mechanism can create stress and unhappiness in situations where survival really is not a concern. Think back to the last time that you received a compliment. You felt pretty good, probably like you were on top of the mountain, until one critique came about. And that one criticism stuck with you much longer than the compliment. That right there, my friends, is negativity bias at work. However, this isn't the end-all be-all, as negativity does not have to dominate your life. Recognizing this tendency is the first step in order to overcome it. And so, with this negativity bias, why is it so bad? Well, it impacts our mental health, leading to stress, anxiety, and even depression. And also, our relationships and overall happiness can suffer as negativity clouds our perception of reality. For example, if you continue to replay a bad interaction over and over again, your brain will interpret that as reality. That will become your reality, your lens that you see life through. That is why, again, you have the saying of glass half full, glass half empty. It's the same glass, but based on the lens that you look at life through will dictate how you see it. So how do we overcome this negativity bias? Well, instead of focusing on the negativity, since we know it's not helpful to us, let me give you 3 practical ways to rewire your brain towards positivity. And the first one, you've probably heard this before, either on my show, or you've heard it on a different show, or you've heard it on a YouTube channel somewhere. You know what's coming. Practice gratitude. I know some of y'all just clicked off already. I know. But for the people who are still here, gratitude shifts your focus from what's wrong to what is right. And science shows us that gratitude rewires our brain towards positivity by releasing feel-good transmitters and activating regions in the brain, such as the medial front cortex, which is linked to social bonding and, get this, stress relief. So being grateful for what we have, practicing gratitude, it actually is linked to stress relief. So doing this practice is quite simple to start. And you can start by doing the following 2 things. Number 1, very simple, make a list of things that you're grateful for. That's it. Just make a list. And number 2, this one's going to require a little bit more brain power. But every time you find yourself complaining about something, focus on the positive. So that job that you hate, depending on when you're listening to this, right? These episodes drop on Monday. So if you're listening to this when it drops on a Monday, that job that you're probably going to or you are at right now, the alternative is what? You have no job, you have no unemployment coming in, but you still have bills to pay. Ooh, that's going to be kind of tough. Or that piece of garbage car that you complain about all the time. What's the alternative to that? You have no car, you have no ability to get around anywhere freely, you can't get to that job that you quote unquote hate so much that gets you the bills. So what's the positive interpretation? Instead of saying, I hate this job that I have, you should say, I am thankful that I have this capability to pay my bills. Because again, what's the alternative? You have no job. And I speak from experience because there was a job that I just did not enjoy that much. And the next thing you know, when I was let go from that job, my first thing was, all right, I don't have to do this anymore. Sweet. We're good. I don't have to do this. I don't have to put myself through this torture until it was almost a year when I was out of a job. And then, unemployment ran out and bills kept coming in. And so it's like, oh no, that's not so good. That job that I did not like as much is now, I kind of wish I had something coming in. And so I experienced that alternative, which is why I can say what I say. I'm telling you right now, the job that you despise so much, if you despise it enough, again, this will be a whole nother episode, but it's the concept that I call the PCR, the pain comfort ratio. And what that means is that when the pain of your current circumstance exceeds the level of comfort that you are experiencing, that is when you will move. I'm still making an episode on that, so stay tuned for that. But those are the two ways you can practice gratitude, right? Making a list of things you're grateful for. And every time you find yourself complaining about something, focus on the positive, which is the grateful part, and then write it down. There you go. Now, number 2 thing that you can do is to adopt mindfulness. Mindfulness keeps you present and aware. I'm not necessarily talking about meditation. I'm just talking about mindfulness, just being aware of where you are right now. Because I guarantee you, without even trying, you're just going to go through life, go through your day, go through your week, go through your month, whatever, and you're just going to just be bombarded with stuff from life. Things are going to come in and you're going to be in a constant reactivity mode, a reactive state. What you want to do is be more proactive in essentially grounding yourself in where you are right now. This works because, again, like I said, a lot of times in life, circumstances and their perceived difficulty can be solved by simply tackling the issues one at a time. So you're bombarded with 9 different tasks to do. Don't focus on all the tasks. You're going to get overwhelmed way too easily. If you have 9 tasks to do, you pick one. Have that as the singular point of focus and complete that task. If you need help picking the task to start, use the eat the frog technique, where you pick the largest, most daunting task and complete that first. If negativity still decides to creep in, pause, take a few breaths, focus on the simple things, focus on the breath, focus on I'm alive. This issue that I have been given is something I can handle. If I cannot handle it myself, I will either find somebody who has handled it or find someone else who has the expertise to help me to handle it. So that way, when it comes up next time, I am more equipped to handle said situation. That's how I see it. It didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of months and honestly years to be able to cultivate that. But with time, reinforcing that belief, whenever something tough comes up, take a couple breaths and realize I don't know all the answers. Let me get some help. Boom. Now I become smarter. Now I can be able to handle it myself. Something else comes up that I don't know. Take a breath before things start getting too stressful. Find someone who knows, get the answer, and just repeat until it becomes second nature, to the point where the second I even foresee something is going to start causing a problem, I am now proactive, and now I start asking questions way ahead of time. So that way, just in case that happens, now I can work through that issue a whole lot quicker. And the third one that I want to touch on here, the third step, is using positive affirmations. So replacing your negative self-talk with the empowering statements. Think of an example of, instead of saying, I can't do this, say, I am capable of achieving great things, or just simply, I can do this. My favorite is, instead of saying, I can't do this, say, how can I do this? Reason why I like doing that the most, changing it from a statement, a negative statement, to a question, and not just a can I do this, it's how can I do this? Because can I do this is still questioning your capabilities. How can I do this is now saying this is possible because it's been done before, but it might be a little bit different for me just because of my gifts and abilities. So there is a way to do this. I just need to find out the way that it works for me. Instead of saying I can't do this. For example, when you're doing math, you're trying to figure out 2 + 2 is 4. I can't figure out 2 + 2 is 4. That is a closed sentence. You've not given your brain any capability to be able to ideate and create and try to create new ways to solve the problem. Instead of saying, I can't figure out why 2 + 2 is 4, you ask yourself, how can I figure out why 2 + 2 is 4? Now you just ask yourself a question. And now the brain goes into where it loves to be. The ability to problem solve and create. You've given it the capability to say, how can I solve this problem? You can now go to the internet. You can go to AI. You can ask a question. You can go to a mathematician. If you're in school, you can go to your professor. Now, obviously, we know 2 + 2 is 4, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say here. Instead of making a closed statement, ask yourself something that is open. How can I? That's my favorite thing to do. Instead of saying, this is impossible, how can I make it possible? What can I break down? What eye pits can I use in order to get this done? And once I get my eye pits, how am I going to label those in my to-do list with my daily schedule so I can continue to make progress on it day by day? See, all these things start adding together now. And the reason why I know this works is because this was a really, really big thing for me back when I was first starting this show. I had a lot of limiting beliefs, thinking that I was too young to start the show. All these people in the podcasting space, they're all in their 30s and in their 40s, and they have all these massive connections and these massive networks. There's no like they walk in a room and people recognize them. There's no way I can compete with all that, right? I was thinking that I'm not knowledgeable enough. That tied into me being young. Like, I don't have all the experience that some of these people twice my age in the space do. There's no way I can keep up with these kind of people. And again, not having a large enough audience was another one that I was struggling with, which was, in hindsight, pretty stupid of me to think. But at that point, it was very real in my head of thinking, I don't have a large audience. Like, how am I going to be able to leverage a large audience to be able to have a massive amount of impact? Now, again, in hindsight, it's just pretty stupid, because how are you going to start with a massive audience when you're literally a nobody on the internet? You got to build that up, right? But again, at that point in time, that was a very real thought for me. And so how did I overcome that? How did I overcome these negative limiting beliefs that would have prevented me from starting the show in the first place? I just did one thing: action. And it sounds simple because it is simple, but it is not easy, because I'm not going to get into the story in this episode, but it took me about 1 year from the idea of the podcast in November of 2019. I had the idea for this podcast, and I did not publish the first episode until November of 2020. That goes to show I was battling these limiting beliefs for about a year, until I finally just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to put an episode out there on the internet, and we're going to see what happens. Worst case, nobody listens and I spontaneously combust. Best case, it pops off and I get hundreds of listens on the first couple episodes. Obviously, only part of the worst case scenario happened. I got no listens. But that was also a very freeing thing, because now that means I can publish something, give it some time, listen to it, see what I like, see what I don't like, tweak it, and there's nobody out there to listen to the first few ugly sounding episodes. And so that began to be the switch that occurred. But that would not have happened had I not put out those first 2 to 3 episodes to launch the show. And so once I started taking action and actually doing, that now became my new mindset. Just take action and do. And a lot of times the limiting beliefs will destroy themselves by just simply doing, because limiting beliefs come from a state of inaction. If you're not doing anything, anything sounds plausible to you. But if you are actually doing, then you'll realize I have the evidence and the proof based on my track record of what is or is not possible. So now me saying things like, I'm not knowledgeable enough. I've been doing this thing for 4 years. I'm pretty sure I have some knowledge. Or I'm too young. I am young, but I've been in rooms with people twice my age and having conversations at that level or higher. So age is definitely not a limiting factor in that thing anymore. It's a matter of mental maturity and the ability to process and being able to just converse at that sort of a level and be able to just understand those things. So it's not that either. And you don't even need a large audience to be impactful either. You just need to be able to be genuinely yourself, and people will naturally resonate. So all those limiting beliefs, by just me posting weekly episodes for like the first year, got completely destroyed. That's why I can tell you this stuff works. You just have to do it. And like I said, I did this for over a year. You cannot do this for 1 week and expect, night and day difference. This is a thing that happens over time, which is why I push so hard that you just to implement today. That's why at the end of these episodes, I always say, hopefully you implement something, because the sooner you start, the sooner you will see results. Because again, when you're listening to me right now, this is the youngest you will ever be for the rest of your life right now. You're not getting younger. So this is the best time as of any to start implementing the change, because the next time that you want to do it, you will be older. And you will therefore immediately have less capabilities. Not noticeable day to day, but over a long enough time horizon, you will have less and less capabilities. So that's why I always urge you at the end of every single episode, implement something. So that way you can start to see some change. And so the key, like I said, to breaking free from all this negativity is prioritizing what truly matters. Ask yourself, am I focusing on what uplifts me and aligns me to my goals, or am I giving too much attention to fleeting negative thoughts? And so by practicing the gratitude, the mindfulness, the positive affirmations, you can transform the way you perceive challenges and opportunities, and you can transform the way you think, and you can become a more positive individual. But all this is prefaced on the fact of, do you want it? If you don't have a strong why of why you want this, you're just going to feel motivated by the end of this episode. You might try this for like 2 or 3 days, but after that, your why was not strong enough, so you will fall off. You will fall off, and you're going to want another hit of motivation to go ahead and do it again. You need to have a strong enough why as to why it is you want to be a more positive individual. Again, like I said, that PCR. If the pain of where you are is not strong enough to initiate and instigate some change for you to seek out some change in your life, you will not stick to it. So that pain needs to be strong. You need to have a strong enough why. That why needs to be a magnetic pulling force, not something that pushes you and forces you to do stuff. No, it needs to be an attraction to you. That why needs to pull you every single day. The days where you don't feel like doing it are the days you still get up and do it regardless. And that's what I have for you for this episode of Motivate, Grind, Succeed. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you implement something. Hopefully you do. Take care, and I will see you all in the next episode. And guys, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Motivate, Grind, Succeed, the podcast. Guys, again, if you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show for weekly uploads. If you love what you heard, be sure to sign up for that email list. And if you hated what you heard, be sure to share it with somebody who will appreciate it. Also, if you guys want to get access to the show notes or any kind of resource or link or to anything that was referenced in this episode, be sure to check out that episode description below. You'll also find the contact information, any freebies, or any sort of thing from our little corner of the internet. Check out the episode description. It's going to be an absolute gold mine for you guys. Until next time, take care, and I will see you in the next episode.